That's my wife, Stephanie. And I don't have anyone leading the meeting, so it's just the both of us. And I'm a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. I am an alcoholic. I do have other problems. Let's see, I tried cocaine, and after about 28 years decided it really wasn't for me. And I have other problems, but in AA we do share about our problem with alcohol. I heard it too. I'm coming up on 14 years without a drink or drug. And I did go to a rehab on all fours, and I asked for help. You guys look pretty good. I wasn't that good, so don't try to pull rank on me. I'm very active in AA. I love it. I really do. It's given me a new way of life. Don't worry. A lot of people go like it's going to turn me into some zombie, who's a Republican, speaks like this, and yes, no, it doesn't. The creative you will remain. I guarantee you. The effed up part of you will go away. It comes back once in a while, but that's why you have the program, so that others can support you and you can give it away to somebody else. Stephanie's going to be our first speaker, and she has a great story. I know women like talking to her. With that, I'll give you Stephanie.
Hi, everybody. I'm Steph. I'm an alcoholic. Call each other do at home if that isn't like vomit cute. Oh. We're do and do, which is not something I thought I would do. So I'm an alcoholic, and I was also a cocaine user for a long time. It is not my problem. If you put a bottle of Jack in front of me and a big pile of cocaine, I'm going to go for the Jack. And the cocaine came into my story like for a long time, and I was a heavy user, but it was really so I could drink the way I wanted to drink. It took away my spins and my blackouts, and it allowed me to drink all night, and luckily to remember all the things I did while I was drinking. That was the only sad part, the not forgetting anymore. So I'll start at the beginning, share my experience, strength, and hope, as they say. I've been starting out a lot lately when I speak in sort of announcing or coming out as an atheist. And I do that not because I want to shock anybody, but because if you're sitting here now and you think to yourself, AA can't work for me, all these people come in and talk about spirituality and God, and that's it, and that's it isn't. And I didn't come to my label of atheism lightly. I did go out and look for spirituality and God, and this isn't like a lazy way of doing things for me. I wanted it. I desperately wanted God and to have that gene, to have that ability, and I just couldn't find it for myself. But AA still allowed me to build a really strong foundation so that I can have a life. And my spirituality is, and if we need to call it, spirituality, it really is group of drunks, right? Because I alone can't do anything. But with you guys, I can do anything, almost anything. I mean, I'm probably not going to apply for any jobs at NASA anytime soon, but I can do a lot more than I ever could alone. And so if that's not spirituality, the interconnectedness of all of us and the strength we have together, whether there's a supernatural element or not, then I don't know what is. So with that, I was born in Trenton, New Jersey in 1978 to an 18-year-old woman and her asshole boyfriend, and she put me up for adoption. And she was Catholic, from a Catholic family, and so didn't have a choice in that time. And I was adopted by two super wasps on the Upper East Side of New York City. Very comfortable lives, very, of a type. The house in Southampton, the everything, all these things that immediately, by the time I was thinking, and I recall this, I didn't feel like I fit into. And I didn't even know I was adopted when I was really young. But I just felt different from everyone around me. We used to go to this club in Southampton when I was little, where all the children were blonde and had that downy blondness on them, blonde everywhere, little, thin, named Bo and Blair. And here I was, like Stephanie Roberts, not Bo or Blair. And I wasn't thin and I wasn't blonde, and I just didn't feel like I fit in. We would go on these like beach walks. Our parents would sit on the beach all day drinking, which in retrospect, some of this might be learned. And they would send us off to Lala Manger's playgroup, and Bo or Blair would be elected to lead the group marching down the beach and venturing little feet into the ocean, and I wouldn't go. I refused to go on the beach walks. I was afraid, and I felt less than all these other kids. And I felt like I didn't fit in with them. So I would sit in the playgroup leader's house, Lala Manger's playgroup, with her mom and eat in the kitchen. And thus my first addiction starts, which is really food. It is food. By the time I'm 8 years old, I'm so uncomfortable in my own skin and so unhappy in my circumstances. And this is like an 8-year-old. There's no reason to feel this way. Literally, my life, for all intents and purposes, was really nice. I had all the bells and whistles. I had loving parents. I had the things you were supposed to have to feel happy and content and confident. And I didn't have any of those. I didn't feel happy, content, safe, or confident. My parents made a lot of mistakes, but they tried the best they could. I don't blame them for this. I had this in me prior to getting to them. So by 8 years old, I was stealing money to buy food. And I would leave school. I was going to different time. I went to and from school alone by 8 or 9 years old, and I would take money from my dad's wallet in the morning while he was still sleeping. I'd sneak it out, and I'd buy candy on the way home, and then I'd sit in my room and I'd binge eat. And then I'd hide the wrappers, not really hide the wrappers well, behind the bed. And my parents caught on to that pretty quickly, and I started getting in trouble for that, which doesn't, whatever. But it's the first signs of addiction in my story were to food, and to use something outside myself to make myself feel better. Quickly, that progresses. And I'm stealing money so that I can hang out with kids who make me feel more comfortable. And I'm stealing money to buy 40s of Old E and drink on, because that's it, right? I'm drinking on the corner of 135th and Lenox with, thank you, with men, because I'm 13, 14, and they're 18, 19, 20. And I would leave my little prep school. I had on my little, skirt and all that stuff and everything perfect. I would leave prep school. I'd take the skirt off. I'd put on a pair of baggy Gerbeau jeans, like Carhartt, I just had my hair on top of my head, tight, crushed bamboo earrings. And I would go from like prim and proper, and I'd sort of start to walk like I had like a hurt leg. And I'd go buy my 40 Old E, and I'd have 2 or 3 of those as a little person, because that's what the guys I was drinking with were having. So you hear a lot of people say, well, if you look back and compare your drinking to the people around you, why? I wasn't drinking with my peers, right? I was drinking with grown men. And we had fun. I genuinely had fun. These were guys I felt comfortable with. They treated me with a lot of respect. I fit in. My best friend was Joy. She lived right up there. So it was a place where I felt like I fit in. And it felt better to me. And so I don't look back at that as like a bad time in my life at all. It's a little weird, like a 13-year-old girl who just got out of her prep school uniform pouring a little out for her homies. But, I felt better doing that than I did, reading Jane Eyre with the downy blonde people. It just wasn't, I felt better. But it quickly became about the alcohol. So I realized in those times when I was enjoying myself that in part this alcohol thing was making me feel more comfortable in my own skin. So I didn't leave 135th and Lenox, but I started to be able to go between the two worlds now that I'd really found the medicine. And alcohol was allowing me to feel more comfortable in this territory in which I hadn't felt comfortable before. So I was going to the bars on the Upper East Side with these like insane, horrible people all of whom are doing some really shady stuff, and I'm falling in with them, and I'm getting into trouble with them, and I'm still hanging out uptown. But I was this chameleon. I had this, like, medication that made me feel okay, and I could do anything, and I could go anywhere, and I could be anyone. And it was the answer I think I'd been looking for since I was 8 years old, because Skittles didn't do it. You know? So my drinking isn't crazy in high school, right? I mean, it's not like now with the carding, you just got there before the bouncers got on if you were going out. Nobody gave a shit. The waitresses weren't fine, like the bar would be, but there were all these bars that you just knew didn't card and wouldn't matter. So it was really easy in my time, and you just go get shit-faced every weekend. I wasn't really into smoking pot, although I pretended to be, but it just sort of made me dizzy and nauseous. And, you know, so weekend warrior through high school, mostly drinking with people older than me, so it's hard to identify. A lot of lying, like right off the bat, a lot of lying, sneaking out, you know, all those sort of teenage behaviors. But the other kids weren't doing it quite to the extent I was. Like, they were like, I'll be in at 1 instead of midnight. And I was like, I'll be in a couple of days, Mom. You know, like, and the lies I would make up were like, they were kind of brilliant for like a 15-year-old girl, 16-year-old girl. If I look back, I'm like, I should have been in another profession. So whatever, weekend warrior, that continues through college. I find cocaine early in college, and I find crystal, but it's in its beginning, and we used to call it glass. And I would only use it if I couldn't get cocaine. So it was like a cheap alternative that was sometimes available when cocaine wasn't. It wasn't like it is now. And it made me feel like shit afterwards. So I preferred Coke and would spend the money because I had it. So I kind of coasted through college. I went to a school that wasn't really hard enough for me on purpose, so I could stay near the city and near my drinking buddies. And weekend warrior was sort of turning into like 4 nights a week, missing classes. But it was a school I didn't really need to work hard in. My dad got really sick in my senior year, so I was back and forth a lot. He died right before I was about to graduate, and that was when I sort of took off. I used that as an excuse. Now, I didn't particularly like either of my parents, but if I had to choose one of them, I liked him the most, and he was always the most in my corner. My mom remains a narcissist and a bitch, but I do have a relationship with her now. Like, I can navigate it now, and I couldn't before. So when my favorite parent died, I was like, oh, this is great. Like, I just crossed right over from a heavy drinker into alcoholism almost immediately. My first job out of college, an alcoholic hired me, and we started having liquid lunches together within 6 months of me working there, and I became more or less a daily drinker. I was on the sales floor of a very high-end, fancy shop on Park Avenue, and I felt very uncomfortable there, so, you know, having some Doors and scotch for lunch, and then it became like I couldn't wait till 5, so I'd pop back out in the middle of the day, and then finally I would just come in from lunch with, I don't know why Mountain Dew, and I hear a lot of people use Mountain Dew, but like a big thing of Mountain Dew, half vodka, half Mountain Dew to get me through the rest of the day. And then I'd drink all night and usually engage in one of the many things we engage in that make it difficult to look in the mirror the next morning. And wake up with a terrible hangover. My hangovers were punishing from like 18 years old on. I mean, it was just like hell. Do it all over again. So my life was not getting better. I was sort of staying in this shitty job, making shitty money, drinking from the afternoon on every day till 4 in the morning, and then waking up at 8 in the morning and doing it again. I was miserable. I was gaining weight. I couldn't really look in the mirror anymore. So I think the best thing for me to do now is like a man would fix it. I'm going to find a man, and I will clean up my act for him. So I started dating one of my bosses, which is always your best choice when you're looking for a new man. And we couldn't really let anybody at work know, so we're sneaking around a lot. And he doesn't even drink. This is the kicker. He is like, well, I'll have a shandy. A shandy is half beer and half lemonade. What? That's not a drink. And then he would sip it. It still makes me angry to think about it. Like, what are you doing? It's not even, it's like I could drink that now, I wouldn't feel guilty. So, I would, that's a joke. But so whatever, things still aren't going well. I haven't fixed myself. Now I'm just taking him hostage. I bring him out drinking with me. He has to sit there with his shandy. While I flirt with half the bar in front of him, he goes home at midnight. I stay out, still do all the shameful, like this has fixed nothing except now I'm lying to someone, right? So I was like, you know what I think, honey? I think if we move, things would get better. Now, it just so happens that he was from Scotland, and I thought, that's the place. That's where I'm going to stop drinking. This is the place for me. I will get well in Scotland. Let's go. You've got family there. It'll be easy. So I move into a really poor neighborhood right outside of Glasgow, where, every other woman's got a black eye, and basically everybody's drunk all the time. So good times ahead. I should have known the minute I got into East Kilbride, that's what it's called, East Kilbride, that things weren't going to go, north. So it did change my drinking because it's more difficult to get alcohol after midnight there. So I sort of moved the drinking. I got a job pretty quickly. I don't know why people were hiring me ever, but they were. I got a job that I had to commute like 4 hours a day in total for, but I would get home. I would drink 2 bottles of wine, so I wasn't going out and engaging in some of the other scary things that could have taken my life in and of themselves, right? So I was just staying home and drinking a bottle of wine. And if I ran out of a bottle, I would buy one. I'm just going to have one. And then before the supermarket closes at 10, I'm like running across Scottish moors. I got to get 2 more, Like at 10 at night, I'm running to the supermarket to buy more wine. So I do that. It's like nothing's going well. I push myself down the stairs to get attention. I'm just crazy. I'm like a crazy person. Like break a mirror on myself in order to get him to react to me more. Things aren't going well. So I thought, okay, I'm going to leave Scotland. I'm going to go back to New York. I'm going to dump his ass and leave it in Scotland. It's him and Scotland that are the problem. Now I'm going to go back to New York, clear of him and clear of Scotland. Everything's going to be fine. First night I got back to New York was August of 2004. Found cocaine, went out drinking all night, found a man, had the same night I'd had every single night before I left for Scotland. And I woke up the next morning with a paralyzing hangover, and I could barely move. My pores felt like the size of nostrils. The windows are drawn. I can't, everything's bad. I'm sweating from not even moving, just breathing is making me sweat. And I thought, I can't do this anymore. Now, I had grown up, as many of you know, in a time when, Requiem for a Dream was cool. I wanted to be, and now I feel like today's movie is like Animals. I would look at that and be so cool. That, I want to be that drug addict. But what was kind of nice about those movies, too, now that I'm sober, they also made it look chic to get sober. It was just as cool to be a former drug addict as it was to be a current drug addict. So in my head, this is what I thought. I'm not embarrassed to do this at all. I'm not embarrassed to get sober, but I can't feel this way anymore. So if I'm in recovery, that sounds chic too. Because I had this delusion that somehow this life was the life that I was never even going to live till age 30, So I came into AA, and I stayed dry for 4 years, and I didn't do a single step. I had a sponsor who had gone in and out and in and out and in and out, and she had 4 years at the time. Wonderful woman, still a great friend of mine. Not sobriety I would look at now as great, but a kind and loving person, and she took great care of me. But I sat in every meeting and raised my hand and told you how miserable I was, and I raised my hand and I got angry, and this sucked, and I wasn't going to do it, and I never listened for the answer. I never listened for the solution. I never listened to identify. I didn't listen for anything positive. And so, I didn't drink for 4 years. I ate. Holy shit, did I eat. By the end of those 4 years, I was 260 pounds. I was one big mamma jamma. And I was eating, Chinese food every night for like 4 people. I would order the Chinese food, and I would say, alone, I lived alone, and I would say, hold on, honey, is there anything you'd like? Because I needed to pretend there were more people in the house, because I was ordering enough food for like 4 people. And then when the delivery guy would come, I'm answering the door at 260 pounds. They know it's all for me. But this is like the lies we tell ourselves, right? So when he would ring the doorbell, I would go, honey, will you get it? And then, okay, fine. Like a whole, other world going on. Like just made it up. So sober, I didn't drink for 4 years, but something else is going on. I just replaced it with food, which was my original one. But did it save my life? I'm pretty sure it did, right? Because the situations I was putting myself into were far more dangerous than binge eating. So, I got fat. That's a reasonably easy solution that doesn't involve a lot of pain, depending on how you feel about working out. So my sponsor went out and I went out. But I had learned a lot from the people in AA, so my drinking changed and my cocaine use changed, and I would go out on Tuesday and Thursday nights, and usually Tuesday went into Wednesday, so I was out of the office most often on Wednesdays and Fridays, and they were almost always all-nighters, and involved a great deal of cocaine to fuel that. And I engaged in a lot of the same behaviors. But now it was with people, we were all kind of the same crew. We hung out at this fancy Upper East Side bar together. We would close down the bar. Then we'd go to my house or my friend Cam's house, and we'd have the after parties. And so I could lie to myself and sort of say it felt safe. It was safe. These were my friends. This was my bar. I'm only doing it twice a week. But it goes on like that for a number of years, and it gets worse. There's more than Tuesdays and Thursdays, and the daily drinking, like during the day and all day, every day, doesn't start up again, which is also good, I guess, because it allowed me to keep my job in my apartment. But I decided I didn't have enough money, and I wasn't making enough, and I was making enough money. But I sort of wasn't admitting how much I was spending on drugs and alcohol. And so I was like, I have some credit card debt. I have $50,000 in credit card debt. So I own an apartment, which my mother bought for me, but I would lie to everybody and say I bought it. Oh, my apartment was a gift from my mother. So I take out a mortgage against the apartment that was a gift in order to pay off my credit card debt of $50,000. But I take out $250,000. Which, wouldn't make sense to a normal person, but made perfect sense to me, because then I would have something to fall back on. I had a little cushion. That was not a cushion. I spent the other $200,000 in 3 months. Sadly, this is right at the end, nearing the end of my story, so I didn't really enjoy it. I did all this weird shit like buying fancy clothes, and even though I'm still fat, now I'm drinking and cocaine and clearly I'm a mess. But if I buy really expensive plus-size clothes and bags and shoes, nobody will know that my life's a mess. And if I rent a house in Southampton for the summer, definitely nobody will know that my life's a mess. So that was $30,000 right there. And then I don't know how to drive. So I have a house for the summer. I don't know how to drive because I grew up in the city. So I'm like, I'll take a car service to and from my house in the Hamptons, and that looks normal, right? But I'll only take Mercedes. So that's, another $15,000 just in car services and that kind of shit. This all makes sense to me, right? This all makes perfect sense. This doesn't seem unmanageable at all. So that's nearing the end of my drinking. Then I invite a man into my life who's the worst yet. None had been abusive until him. And it's because of the abuse in that relationship, actually, it was sort of lucky, because that's when I knew that life would not get better if I stayed drunk. And he wanted to keep me drunk. And I was like, the only way to do this. So I spent about a year trying to get sober. It took me about 6 months to get him out. It took me about a year to come back. I probably had more days dry that year than I did have drinking, but every time I went out, it was big. I had to make up for all those dry days. And I finally came back on October 10th of 2011. And I did it the right way, I guess. I mean, here's hoping. But I chose a woman, I asked a woman to be my sponsor who I had hated the first time I was in, because she was like, you're going to call me at 7:30 every morning. You're going to go to a meeting every single day. You're going to do that. You're going to sit up front. You're going to look at the speaker. You're not going to talk to... Like, all these suggestions, they weren't suggestions coming from her. They were like orders, and that's what I hadn't liked the first time. And I probably hadn't liked that she like stayed sober. And she's still sober, 35 years now. And she has a really nice, happy life, and she gets through stuff. And so, like, I identified something in there that was, like, good, but I was doing it because she was going to, like, make me get in line. And it worked. I did everything she said, and in the beginning, really, the thing she said, like, in retrospect, call me in the morning before you go to work. Not that hard. Go to a meeting every day, sit up front, listen to the speaker, introduce yourself to the speaker when you're finished. Also not that hard. That was all I had to do for 90 days. Was I willing to go to any lengths to get it? Those were the lengths for the first 90 days. I did not have a sponsor who said we have to go through the steps all in 90 days. She said, we'll figure it out as we get to know you, whether you go fast or you go slow. Here's how I did it. It's how I'd like to do it, but she was flexible. So all I did for 90 days was call her every morning, go to a meeting every day. Sometimes I would lie and say I'd get into a meeting when I hadn't. But I didn't like lying to her. It felt uncomfortable. I would turn red. I would be very grateful that we were on the phone and not in person. The other thing, she made a very suggestion that I not date. I, like Richard, have other problems, so the dating suggestion I took lightly. And I'd lost the weight, like I was, looking awesome and sober, and I thought, this is it, I'm so hot now, right? I'm like not raising my hand in meetings because the good guys won't want a newcomer. So, I'm still a little, and I meet a guy, and he's sober, and he's 10 years sober, which says a little bit about him now when I look back. In 2 weeks, I'm madly in love with him. I tell him. He tells me he's in love with me. So that lasted 6 months. I did a whole lot of changing in those 6 months, and I was no longer in love with him. He was sort of verging on homeless, I think, but at the time it seemed good. It filled in something. I don't suggest it. I mean, when we broke up, it made everything way more difficult than it needed to be. But here's the thing. I really wanted to stay sober, and the truth is that suggestion's a good one, because why make your life more difficult at an already difficult time? Why do you want to push that limit? That said, I wanted it enough that no guy was going to take me out. Like, I was in it. So no love story, real or imagined, was going to be the reason I failed, because I wanted it. I wanted it so badly. I never wanted to feel that way. Not just the fact that there weren't any mirrors in my house anymore, except like the one above the sink that was, here, because I couldn't look at myself, right? All those, not the fatness, not the way I treated myself, the things I let other people do to me in an effort to not feel, like that had made my world so small, right? Not a single full-length mirror in my house. I wouldn't even look, how when we're feeling good and we look at our reflection in the window as we're passing by, and you're like, oh, flat tummy, good boobs. None of that. I was like, there are no windows in it, like nothing. I didn't want to see myself. So I couldn't see the unmanageability yet, which we now all laugh about. Like, really? $300,000 in debt? You didn't see unmanageable? But I didn't. What I did have was an unbearable life. I couldn't be in here anymore. The physical, too. I mean, the physical was unbearable. My hangovers were like, oh my God. Like, I can't. If I felt that way now, really, I would go to the hospital. Like, it makes me anxious just thinking about it. Like, they were so bad. So that was unbearable, but really like the script in my head was impossible to live with. It was so bad. I hated myself so much. And there's this particularly weird one in my opinion, because I've literally never heard anybody else say this, but like I would cross the street and I would think to myself, the guys in the cars waiting at the red light, if they could, they would just drive and hit me. Like, that doesn't even make sense, right? But it's like I just thought I was in everybody's way. Like, I was just a piece of garbage. So that was unbearable. And I knew I never wanted to feel that way again. And I knew when Dale told me I never had to feel that way again, I believed her. She never felt that way anymore. Or not never. I mean, 6 years in, there have been occasionally like a pile of tears in front of the mirror because whatever, I'm retaining water, or I think I'm in menopause really early, or, whatever it is. Like there's something, or Richard has told me I'm fat. He would never. But there are days. There are days that suck, and there are days I don't like myself. But I don't have that script in my head anymore. And more often than not now, I cross the street and I think, oh, I wonder if that guy likes me. I wonder if Richard would mind if I... And then I stop myself. He's got a jealous tendency. But, so I did what I was told, and I did the steps in our own time. It took me a little over a year. I don't think there's any right time, I'm going to strongly suggest don't go to someone who says you can do it all in a day, because we've evolved from the beginnings of the program, and you can take your time and really get into it, and some of us need that. Some of us don't. I'm not a firm believer in doing it over and over and over again. Like, take your time and really get to the root of stuff in the beginning. But you'll feel out your own timeline with your sponsor if you have a good sponsor. So I did the steps, and I did what I was told, and I took the suggestions, and life slowly but surely got better. And the script went away in my head and was replaced by a better one. And I started to have mirrors back in my house again. And I started to do better at work. I still have the same job. My boss is an amazing man who saw me through it all. So I got really lucky in that way. I didn't have to hit those other bottoms. I didn't have to lose everything. But I was on the path to it. I don't want to go back. So I built a foundation in AA. Now, I love AA as much as Richard does. I really do. But it is not as much a part of my life as it is a part of his. He is someone who needs it daily, every single day at 14 years. I am not someone who needs a meeting daily. Am I in touch with another alcoholic every single day? Absolutely. One of the things that has been most important for me, I feel like I have white goop all over my lip. Like cotton mouth, but... I am in touch with another alcoholic every day. Don't make any gross jokes. I see these ones here. White stuff on her mouth. So I talk to another alcoholic every day. And one of the things that saved me mostly and made this sobriety so different was service. And yeah, for me, that was like making coffee here and there. But for like what I finally found, I started chairing some meetings in the city, and that really helped. The one-on-one connection with people. When I started sponsoring women, my life turned around, because here, like, esteemable acts, right? Building self-esteem. I'm not saving a life. I'm not doing anything but saying I'm here. I'm strong for you when you feel weak. I'm here to love you when you don't love yourself. But really, that's what I'm here to do, and to help you navigate the beginnings so that you have a really firm foundation on which to build a life. That doesn't mean that you sit in meetings all day, every day, and for some people it will. For me, it doesn't. It gave me a foundation on which to build a life. I met an insane man who I married just recently. Still curious if that was the right choice. No. I love him, and I never thought I'd marry like a giant Japanese toddler. Wasn't the vision I had for my life. Turns out it's really nice. He's a good guy. I love him. He is who he is because he found the rooms of AA. I am happy most of the time. I feel safe most of the time. I like myself most of the time. I'm at peace most of the time. And I owe every part of that to the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. Thank you.
Well, first of all, she's much better to look at than I am. But that giant Japanese thing, like I normally start my talk with, I'm not American Indian, I'm not Chinese, don't ask me for an egg roll. I'm Japanese, not a Jewish American princess, I'm a Jap. Okay, that's part of my... that's part of my story, because you say, Stephanie talks about, I feel different then. I don't feel part of all of these kids that are having a good time. I just don't feel part of it. And that was, growing up as a Jap, like this gentleman knows different then, it wasn't fun. I mean, people would make fun of me, Chinese cherry, gook, yeah. I heard it all, and the kids would come into my house and they go, what's that smell? Oh, they're eating bait, fish bait. And I'm like, these are the same guys that are asking me about sashimi. And I said, yeah, you see that green stuff? Just take that and put that in your mouth. So yeah, it's a part of the thing about being different. I don't feel like I'm connected. And, growing up Japanese, that doesn't help. I grew up in West Babylon. Everyone was Italian and Catholic. I'm a Shinto Jap. It's not working right. I start to be very reclusive. God blessed me with a very high IQ, which I no longer have. I drank and drugged that all away. And, I did schoolwork all the time. And that was my pride and joy, just staying up there. I was the kid who wanted to copy from me. I'm like, no way. Every time I go into rehab, sometimes they go, are you a doctor? I said, no, because I have a jacket on and I'm Japanese. That's racial, what do you call it? Racial, yeah. Oh, you a doctor. You're a gynecologist. So you see, we lived delusional. Like Stephanie, the delusion I lived was, and when I had that first drink, a lot of people go, oh, I felt it from the head to my toes. I didn't feel that. I felt like I'm part of somebody. These guys, Anthony Ronaldo, Tony Carazano, Vinny Babalucci, they're like, hey, come over here. I'm like, I'm going to get the shit kicked out of me. And they introduced me to a beer and cigarettes. And I felt part of them. And I wanted to be like them. And, all of a sudden, that clean-cut little boy whose mother used to put him in a blue blazer and a bow tie, yeah, that was fun, was all of a sudden my hair started to grow long. I took that stuff off, and I wanted to be with them. And in 8th grade, I'm going to parties with them, and they're drinking, and, girls like this, the little cheerleaders, the guy's smashing a beer can on his forehead, and they're like, ooh, what a man. And I'm going, there's got to be more to it than this, because I'm chasing that buzz. It's, people say, like, oh, alcohol didn't work for me. I said, shit, it worked for me. I felt good. I felt like I should be. I'm strutting instead of that little reclusive Jap kid. And I want more. And I need it all the time because I watched these guys that brought me in, and they only drink on the weekends. They only drug on the weekends. And I'm like, wait a minute. I want to do this every day. And I have people buying me like Tango. You know what Tango is? Yeah, if you don't know, it's the worst vodka in the world mixed with Tang, the breakfast of astronauts. And it's gross. I can still burp it up. And I would go to school and I would slug half of it down and go to school like, yeah, it's good, this is good, this is good. And so it worked every day for me. I needed it. Why wouldn't I want it if it worked so well? And those guys went away. I was at the party with them, and I got introduced. Some guys said, come over here. And they had everything I wanted. They had hard liquor. They had drugs. What more do I want? Right? And I started my journey into really delusion. And I'm chasing this thing all the time. We say sometimes, you're always chasing that first buzz because it was perfect. It was nice. It was, the yin and the yang was there. Now I'm doing enormous amounts of blow and drink, like to find that spot again, that spot where I'm just walking right. Everything feels good, and I just couldn't find it. And my body just said, we need more. I thought I was a bad person. And I learned later on, I take that drink in, I take that drug in, and my body's like, come on. And, I'm delusional. I make every excuse possible to continue to do it. Around high school, Yoko Ono and John Lennon become very popular. All of a sudden, it's very cool to be Japanese. And all of these girls want a piece of the Jap. I have not gotten laid so much in my life at that period, you know. You're out the door. I'm in. I am in. Oh, it's fantastic. Now, who's got it better than me? You know, Richard, you got a problem. I said, oh, really? I'm feeling pretty good. And that's the way I went. You know, we all share in Alcoholics Anonymous about our experience, how we grew up. All of that is not why I'm an alcoholic. You know, a lot of people have their own theories about drug addiction. I feel I go the genetic way, where I have something in me that other people go to a point and they're okay. You know, you ever sitting at that kitchen table at 3 o'clock in the morning and someone says, I've had enough. Really? And all of a sudden it comes all over here. I've had enough. And alcohol, I watch people drink and I'm going, would you drink the effing thing? You know, the sipping made me crazy. And you know what I mean? Like, come on. I became a real barroom person, not the clubs, you know. I liked the place that had a nice aroma of urine. This was good, this is good. Women that looked like they were hit with a truck. You know, but all of my friends, we go to a bar and we go like, yeah, tonight I'm gonna get that. And they, you know what, 10 minutes later, what? You know, because we're just thinking on one thing. And, you know, I started to go downhill. You know, Steffi talked about the weight thing. You know, when I came into rehab, I weighed over 350 pounds. I had hair down to my waist, and I had these big softball knots of hair because I never brushed my hair. Now, one was the size of a softball, so I was always like walking like this. I couldn't lay on my side. And no exaggerations. You know, they were like, Richard, and like little tsetse flies would come out because I'm not bathing. That's why I say you guys look good. I wasn't bathing. I wasn't doing anything. My teeth are falling out of my mouth. I can't eat anything because it just hurts. And oh, these are all implants now. I had diabetes, the skin was coming off, you know, it get that nice glow where it's stretched, and you can take your finger and rub it off, and, you know, the doctor said, you know, Richard, that slime on your feet, you're going to take your feet off, and I'm like, whatever. As long as I can walk into a bar or see my drug dealer, I'm okay. You know, I was married, I had 3 children, they're still there. But, you know, they lived a horrible life. I moved to I didn't go to the Hamptons. I mean, a big night at our house was a pizza on Friday. And I was starting to make money. I started a business, and like I had like 5 employees, 10 employees, 20, 50. I'm like, whoa, this is, you know what? It wasn't that great. I wasn't proud of it. It was like it was providing me a lot of money. Money is, for me, whoa, boy, I can do anything. And I would hear people say, you know, you know, Richard, you got a problem. I said, oh, really? How much do you make? How much do you make? Really? I make that in about a minute. And then I'll be like, every person that I made fun of me in school, I'd see them in a bar, I said, how's it going still living with mom? I got very nasty. But my alcoholism was driving me. Everything good about life, I just threw away. You know, the children at home, I threw money at them. Okay, that was it. My youngest daughter was born with a learning disability, Asperger's. Asperger's. And she, in the beginning, she was supposed to go to the doctor, mental hospital right away. And my wife at that time said, not on my watch. And, you know, she did everything she could for her, you know, the conventional to the unconventional, aromatherapy, acupuncture, you name it, they did it. And, you know, the saddest thing is, like, I was embarrassed. I was embarrassed because I had a daughter that had a problem, because it was taking away my time. That when we were at some sort of counseling or everything, I was like, when the fuck's this going to be over so I can get to the nightcap? That's his uncle's bar. Yeah, you know what you go to the nightcap for. One thing and one thing only. There's no socializing. No, you were an alcoholic and drug addict, period. And the thing is, that, when the big day came when she's going to graduate high school and go to college, and I'm laying on that couch, the couch, it's all ripped up, and she's looking down at me and goes, and I said, honey, when is the graduation? She goes, Dad, you missed it. You see, I didn't care about anything but my addiction. It was in AA in the big book we called King Alcohol. It was in charge of me. It would take me by the nose and pull me where it wanted to go. I'm the guy that comes to the liquor store buying $6.99 vodkas. Okay, the safety conscious, you drop them, they roll around. Okay, and I'm going there for the second time in the day, and the clerk is going, really? Really? Well, I'm having a party tonight. Really? And I'm hitting a bottom, okay? My wife leaves me. It takes me about 4 weeks to realize she's gone. I thought the woman just learned how to treat me and leave me alone. The kids are away. And then I heard in AA, when the walls start closing in on you. And I just was able to have one room, and they're getting smaller. They are really getting smaller. And I heard in AA too. The worst guy, the other alcoholics that hung out at that bar, I come in like they go, Richard, calm down. Richard, go home. Johnny Mack was my bartender. And he'd say, Richard, don't bother the customers. Because I was one with a mouth across the room. Hey, you fucking asshole. But I always had two big guys sitting next to me, okay? And they were like, go through them first. And I wasn't even allowed in there. It was like, no, Rich, go home. I would fall asleep on the bar. Johnny Mack would take my money and put it in the back. And, I'd wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning at the bar. It wasn't good. And I wouldn't go home. I had this family, and they never saw me. I had daughters who would hear things like, hey, we saw your dad yesterday. Really, where? They was all crawling down Deer Park Avenue on all fours. I was the guy in the bar who came in and, whoops, I shit in my pants. Excuse me. That was how bad I'm getting. And, I can't even leave the house eventually. I can't go to work. I owned the business, and they were like, go home. And I got stuck in that room. I just couldn't stop. And, later on, I realized, a lot of people go, I was trying to commit suicide. I don't have, but I was drinking so much. It was like I was trying to kill myself by just going away. I wanted to just go away. And people would come in, they'd look at me like, ooh, Richard. Most people would come in, they'll go like, my father-in-law came in, and then he went back, and he said he had a cold. Because no one wanted to face it, I wasn't allowed any place, but I went. There was a big party for my father-in-law. I wasn't supposed to go, and I showed up. I showed up loud and proud. The ones where they're dragging you out and embarrassing the whole family. And there's no other way to say it, but I just couldn't stop. I couldn't stop. And when I come to in the morning, my first thought was, oh, no, not again. Because I didn't want to wake up. I was like, whoa. And it went to the same thing. When I was semi-okay, I was a big morning drinker. I was a shaker. And, I'd have that first drink and the second drink. At that time I was drinking Tanqueray. Those nice green bottles were gone. And I'm shaking. The third one is okay. I'm not shaking. The fourth one is okay. I put on a sock. That's cause for a celebration. Let's have another drink. By the time I'm dressed, it's 12:30 and I'm laying on the couch. And that's the way it was. And, I hit a bottom. And that bottom was I got on all fours. So I said, I can't do this anymore. I knew that I was in another world. I couldn't relate. In the house, there were dust balls jumping up on the couch with me, and they're taught to talk to me. And, unlike other drugs of choice, with alcohol, the delusions and illusions on that happy ones, that dust ball wasn't saying, hi, Rich, good morning. It was saying, Rich, what you should do to yourself today? You know what you should really do? And I hit a bond. I hit that floor, and I just asked for help. I went to a rehab just like this, and I made a decision. Right, I'm laying in a room looking at the other guy, and I'm going like, how the fuck did I get here? It's the stupidest question we all ask ourselves. How did I get here? May I tell the long story or the short story? And, you know, God, please give me a time machine. I'll go back and I'll do it differently. And I knew that wasn't true, because I'm an alcoholic at heart. I mean, I'm an alcoholic physiologically, a drug addict physiologically. I can't party like other people because it just takes over. And when I got into rehab, AA would come in, and I'm like, I don't know. You know, like, I sort of was surrendering right there. So I guess I got to be an AA, because I knew how bad I was. You know, AA was a little creepy to me at times. You know, the first speaker I heard had one of these mouthpieces where he couldn't use his throat. So he's up there, he goes, "Hi, my name is Lennon." And I'm like, what? Does anyone have a AA battery here? I'm like, whoa. I mean, this is what I'm going to sign up for? I don't know. But I'll tell you, I started to see guys in AA. The women weren't too bad either. Yeah, you got to watch out for AA women. Just be careful when you first go in the rooms, because they're predators.
You're all very
No. You meet a girl when you first go there. You go, hi, hi. Then one day, next week, you go, who the fuck do you think you are touching me? I'm like, whoa, bad day, isn't it? But the thing is that I did see something different about them. I did see that they were pretty confident. You know, we talk about a gleam in the eyes, but they were confident. I realized when I looked at them, okay, that's what I was missing. I mean, I had a lot of bravado, I had a lot of shit stick, I had a lot of everything going on, but I was always afraid. I was always fearful. I was always thinking you were thinking bad things about me. I was always feeling less than you. And you know what? I had a cure for it, and it was that drink and drug. And that drink and drug took over for everything. It just was commando in chief. And I knew that. But in AA, I saw really something different. And I was fearful of it, too, because I was like, man, they're going to take this exciting clubbing barroom guy who shits in his pants and pees on the floor, and they're going to make him like a zombie. That's what I thought. I'm going to play pinochle or something. I don't know how to play pinochle. You know, maybe I'll go bowling. I'm like, whoa, this is bad. I didn't like the whole thought of it. You know, I'm going to wear funny clothes. And, you know why I put a jacket on? Because AA was supposed to show that it works. And if I came up here in, you know, like a ripped shirt and everything that says "eat me," you know, you're like, I don't know. You know, so we try to show that it works. We try to show that we're different than we used to be. And we try to show that one of the things I needed to do when I came in AA is to listen. I have a hard time listening. You know, I always have what is it called? I have where I fade away sometimes. You know, you're talking to me and all of a sudden I'm like, yeah, and like I was talking to the guy and he starts looking at something else. Yeah. So I had to listen, like Stephanie, or maybe not. I got a very strict sponsor. I needed real strictness with me, not like, you know, yeah, okay, whatever. It was like, Richard, you'll call me at 7:30 in the morning. And I mean 7:30, not 8:30, 9:30. You'll be at the meeting. You'll do this, you'll do that. I mean, I needed that. When I got out of rehab, I thought everything was, you know, the bar was still there. The bar was still there. I thought it would mystically go away because I'm trying to get sober. Okay? The people I know, we stopped drinking, Rich, because we know you're trying to get sober. And my dealer, Rich, I don't want to bother you. You're trying to get sober. They're all there. They're all there just waiting. And you know what? I had to go to a meeting every day. I had to listen to my sponsor. And you know, don't let anybody tell you, oh, it's easy. Or people say, it's the easiest, softer way. Bullshit. It's hard. It really is hard. And you got to really grasp it. And then many times in the beginning and later on, where you're like, man, I just want to drink. I just want to drink to relax myself, you know. And I needed to get rid of that. And the program, the meetings are sort of like football. It's like a huddle. You know, we all get together, break. and you play one more game one day, you come back, another play, you come, and that's sort of the way it worked for me. I needed that, and I needed guys who were in AA also to talk with me, because some of us were having bad days, and in the morning we talked to one another, you know. Everyone in the sober house, hi, sober house in West Babylon, hi, sober house in this, and you know, we talked. And you know, when I hear a sponsee tell me something, I was thinking the same thing, and he sounds so stupid. And I was like, that's the same thing I was thinking. It's so stupid. So all I can say to you is, not just come to AA, but become part of it. Listen to what you're told. Don't become a genius in addictionology in 1 month. I understand now the addiction problems, and I'm like, oh, fuck, this guy's been here 2 weeks, you know? Or the other one, in rehab, you know the guys, right? I was with them. Some of them are sober now. I'll show you what to do. I've been here 4 times. Really? Really? Not quite the role model I need right now. So, anyway, come to AA or NA or whatever you choose, but listen to what they say. All right, we're going to close with their serenity prayer. Hold on, number 1. Ready? God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Thank you very much. All right.